I don't care if it's a family wedding or what, but do you think it's acceptable to take a day off on the day of an important client's founding anniversary party? My boss, Catherine, said that as she rejected my request for paid leave. My name is Michael. I graduated from college this year and joined a well-known major food company, famous for its TV commercials, and it's been 6 months since I started. I come from a single-parent family, living with my mom and my older sister. My mother, who works in a restaurant, doesn't earn much, and our family's life was tough when my sister and I were young. My sister, Elizabeth, 5 years older than me, didn't go to high school after finishing middle school. Instead, she got a job at a flower shop to help support our family along with our mother. So, I thought I have to work right after middle school, but my sister stopped me. You're smarter than me and you like studying, so make sure you go to college. I'll figure out about the tuition. Thanks to her, she paid for my education and I was able to attend college. That's how I landed a job at a big corporation. Now, she's getting married next month. As her only brother, I absolutely want to attend and celebrate. That's why I begged Catherine, my boss, bowing deeply. Please, it's my sister's wedding. She quit school after middle school to work and support our family, even paying for my college tuition. I really want to celebrate her wedding. But Catherine just sneered and laughed through her nose. Oh, your sister only finished middle school. Must have been quite a pull upbringing to have to work instead of going to high school. Unbelievably, Catherine started looking down on my family. Anyway, it's been decided long ago that everyone in our sales division attends the client's founding anniversary party, especially for newcomers. It's a chance to be remembered, so I can't approve any leave for any reason, she said, and then tore up my leave application. Really, young people these days take their jobs too lightly. She sighed with a stern look in her eyes. Catherine has always been a strong-willed, archetypal female boss, but she seemed particularly unyielding on this matter. Reluctantly, I backed down for the time being. Then, a month later, on the morning of my sister's wedding day, I'm taking the day off after all. I called in. Catherine was furious. Come in now, or I'll fire you. I was yelled at like that, but my decision remained unchanged. What a way to speak. At this point, I don't care if I get fired. I'd rather find a new job than work under such an oblivious boss. But then, my sister, who seemed to have overheard the call, approached me with a worried look. What's wrong? The person on the phone sounded really angry. I could hear it from here. It seemed she heard Catherine's yelling. Actually, there's a company anniversary party today. I explained the situation to her. Her face turned pale. What have you done? Go to work right now and attend a party. Forget about my wedding. But I have the right to take paid leave. I applied a month in advance, even if it clashes with an important party. It's unfair not to be allowed to take leave on such an important day. But if you keep that up, you'll get fired. You just got this job. It's okay. I'm still young and educated. I'll find another job quickly. I reassured her and sent her off to prepare for her wedding. The wedding went smoothly that day. But my phone, set to silent mode, was filled with numerous missed calls from Catherine. The next day, I was called in by both Catherine and our department head, Harrison. Michael, why did you take an unauthorized leave yesterday? Harrison immediately said that upon seeing me. What? I didn't take an authorized leave. I submitted my application a month in advance, but Catherine tore it up. I also called in the morning of the day. At this, Catherine turned red with anger. Don't lie, Harrison. I never received any application, nor did I tear it up. I didn't receive any call that day either. I was shocked to be called a liar. Catherine was the real liar. Then show us your phone call history. If you have nothing to hide, You should be able to show it, right? Upon being challenged by Harrison, Catherine became indignant. That's an invasion of privacy. I can't comply. Instead, I showed Harrison the call history on my phone. It had a record of the call I made to Catherine that morning. Catherine, it seems you're the one lying. Harrison, but I truly didn't receive any leave application. It's outrageous to call in the morning of the day, knowing you plan to take a leave. Please fire Michael. Catherine, we can fire a valuable employee for such a reason. Harrison defended me. That's the way of a major corporation. Not just anyone like Catherine can fire an employee. I breathed a sigh of relief. But from that day on, Catherine's terrible harassment to me began. You're from a single-parent family, aren't you? No wonder you dress so poorly. I bet your suit is from some cheap discount store. Remember, we're a major corporation. Please dress properly so as not to tarnish our image. She must have found out somehow that my family was a single-parent household and ridiculed me every chance she got. Your sister probably couldn't get into a decent company either. Poor thing. Poverty seems to run in the family. I was infuriated, not just about the comments about my mother, but my sister too. My sister works at a well-known flower shop. When I retorted that, Catherine turned pale, repeating my words. That shop? Yes, the one in front of the station. I wondered if she knew it. Is your sister's name Elizabeth, by any chance? Catherine guessed my sister's name correctly. Yes, but do you know her? That's it. You're Elizabeth's brother. Catherine seemed not to hear me anymore and started muttering to herself. Then, on the following Sunday night, my sister called me. Catherine from your company brought a wedding gift to our shop today. Catherine, why? Actually, I met her a long time ago. My sister said that and began to talk about what happened back then. It was an incident that happened 5 years ago. My sister was working at the flower shop in front of the city station that day too. With no customers around at that time, my sister looked up at the pedestrian bridge in front of the station. There was a woman there, seemingly lost in thought. The woman didn't move from that spot for 20 minutes. Eventually, she made a motion as if to lean over the railing of the bridge. Below was a wide highway, with large vehicles like trucks speeding by. She was about to jump official. Realizing this, my sister rushed out of the shop, ran up the stairs to the bridge. She then looked into her face from the side and spoke to her gently and calmly so as not to provoke her. Ma'am, is something bothering you? I'm here to listen if you want to talk, anything at all. Oh, how about we go and have a drink together? I know a great place. My sister, seeing the woman in distress, took her hand and gently pulled her towards herself. She then went straight down the pedestrian bridge and back to the flower shop and told the manager why she was there and asked to be allowed to leave early. The manager graciously agreed. Afterward, my sister took the woman to a nearby pub and treated her a meal and some drinks. The best thing when you're feeling down is to eat something delicious and have someone listen to you. Saying so, my sister listened to her story. The woman, about a decade older than my sister at 35, shared that she had been abandoned by her live-in partner, whom she was planning to marry, leading her to despair. I've been dumped at this age, and now I probably won't ever get married. My life seems utterly hopeless. Saying that, she cried. My sister consoled her empathetically. I understand how sad and painful it is. I've been through a breakup too. It feels like the end of the world. As my sister showed empathy, the woman argued back. But you're still young. You have your whole life ahead. I don't have a future anymore. However, my sister continued to encourage her persistently. No, I don't think so. You're a wonderful person, so age doesn't matter. I am sure that one day you will meet someone who will love you with all their heart. My sister continued to listen to her complaints. Later, they went to another bar, helping the woman to vent her stress. "Thank you so much for today. I feel much better now," she said to my sister as they were leaving. "Whenever you want to relieve stress again, just call me." Saying this, they exchanged contact information, and later, she treated my sister to a meal. Shockingly, that woman was Catherine. However, after that incident, Catherine transferred to Los Angeles and they gradually lost touch. 3 years later, Catherine returned to New York, fell in love with a man she met through work, and got married. Today, she visited my sister's shop and said, "If I had jumped off that bridge back then, I wouldn't have met my husband. I'm happy now thanks to Elizabeth." She then presented my sister with a wedding gift. To think that Catherine was an acquaintance of my sister was surprising. It was surprising to learn that she had such a past. I had only seen her as a strong and confident figure at work. She was reflecting on the bad things she did to you. My sister said that over the phone. She said she treated you the same way because her boss was tough on her when she was young, but when your boss defended you, she got angry and said a lot of unpleasant things. She's really regretting it now. Even hearing these excuses, I couldn't forgive her for trying to get me fired with lies and for insulting my mother and sister. But the next day, Catherine called me to the conference room. "Michael, I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong." She sincerely apologized to me. After meeting Elizabeth again, I remembered the importance of caring for others. "I've been terrible, trying to do to you what was done to me when I was younger, lying, being sarcastic, and just being the worst." When I remained silent, she continued, "I think Elizabeth told you, but she's my lifesaver. I really regret treating her brother so badly. I can ask for forgiveness, but I intend to change and become better." I had no intention of forgiving her, but I couldn't ignore such a sincere apology. "I was wrong too. Taking a leave without your approval was wrong, but I will never forgive you for mocking my mother and sister." Catherine looked at me as if seeing something amazing. "Michael, you really care about your mother and sister." "Of course, I was able to go to college thanks to them." "That's wonderful. I'm truly sorry for how I spoke about them. Let me treat you tonight. How about we go for a drink? Oh, why don't you invite Elizabeth too?" So, I reluctantly agreed, and that night, Catherine, my sister, and I went for drinks at a pub near the office. Catherine shared various stories about her younger days at the company. Catherine was discriminated against by her then manager, Harrison, just because of her gender, and treated harshly. She had been looked down upon a lot, such as "just because you're a woman or women are always like that." At that time, Harrison was particularly focused on a client, and when Catherine's grandmother passed away, the funeral clashed with the client's founding anniversary party. When Catherine asked for a paid leave, Harrison was furious. "If you take leave, you'll be fired." Upon hearing that, she tearfully attended a party instead of her beloved grandmother's funeral. Because of such experiences, Catherine, now a supervisor, ended up doing the same thing to me, her subordinate. It was the worst way of thinking, doing to others what was done to me. I should have taken it as a lesson of what not to do. Seeing Elizabeth after so long made me feel ashamed of what I was doing. "Understood, Catherine. Realizing it is what's important." My sister said that and comforted Catherine. Looking at my sister, Catherine said, "I didn't know, but it was wrong of me to mock someone as good as you." Then I told her, "Learn from this and never judge or look down on people based on their education or family background, no matter who they are." Catherine then shrugged her shoulders in embarrassment. "I've reflected on it. I won't do it again." Since then, Catherine stopped being harsh to me. She became known for being kind not just to me, but to all the employees. And sometimes, Catherine, my sister, and I would go out for drinks together. Thus, Catherine and I, while being supervisor and subordinate, built a good relationship without any awkwardness. What's this? Bathroom cleaning. Did you quit law school to become a fancy janitor or something? There I was, in a facility's bathroom, casually cleaning a dirty sink. Just then, an old acquaintance of mine appeared by chance and mocked me with those words. I used to think of you as a rival, but I guess I was way off. Despite years since our last meeting, all he did was sneer at me, holding a rag in my hand. Thinking back, he was always this kind of guy, and I couldn't help but be amazed as I revealed what I was actually doing. His response was unexpected. He could only stand there, wide-eyed, unable to say a thing. My name is Mike. Ever since I was a kid, I've always had a strong sense of justice compared to other kids. I loved playing hero games with my classmates, and I always took on the role of the hero. Justice always wins. Such a childishly idealistic belief was what I aimed to embody. Naturally, my dream was to be a hero. I wanted to be a cool, invincible hero who defeats villains. Until about 4th grade, I insisted a towel blanket was my cape and wore it proudly. I ran around the park with it, climbing high on playground equipment, ignoring my parents' warnings. Looking back now, those are some pretty embarrassing memories. Among my classmates, there was another guy who aspired to be a hero. His name was Steve. I pride myself on my passion for being a hero, but Steve's passion was no less intense. We often argued, insisting each of us was the #1 hero. Our hero games often turned into fierce debates. Then I'll be the main hero. No way, I'm the main hero. Whenever my friends and I gathered to decide the lead role, Steve would always barge in like that. What are you talking about, Steve? You joined in the middle, so I'm the main hero. That's not a rule. I'm the main hero. Me. I'm the main hero. No, it's me. No, I am. No, it's me. It was a relentless back and forth, and we'd get so heated that adults had to intervene every time. Steve and I had a strange bond, first meeting in kindergarten. Even back then, he was always picking on me, and I was frankly sick of it as a kid. I thought I'd see less of him in elementary school. But to my surprise, we ended up in the same class in the 1st grade. And it continued like that in the 2nd and 3rd grades. Turns out, we were destined to be in the same class for all 9 years of mandatory education. We were always aware of each other, each striving not to lose to the other. It was a rivalry, but not in the noblest sense. Our fiercest competition was probably in academics. Hey, Mike, what did you get in math? He'd always come over to me after test was returned. He seemed very confident that day, smiling broadly. What about you, Steve? Me? Look, I got 98. He proudly spread his test paper in front of me, like he was showing off. The teacher said the highest score in the class was 98. Steve was so smug, sure of his victory. But unfortunately, the highest score simply means the top score, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's held by only one person. I got 98 too. I retorted with a smug look, just to crush his smile. By not making a fuss like him, I secretly took a mental victory over him. The same score, really? That's boring. Maybe it's a mistake in the teacher's grading. You better be honest and report it if there's a mistake in your scoring. Our gazes clashed as if sparks were flying, glaring at each other intensely. Eventually, we both looked away, determined to win in other subjects next time. Whenever another test was returned, we'd meet again to compare scores. If one won, he'd taunt the other. If he lost, he'd make some excuse. This pattern repeated with every test. Our rivalry even manifested during the school's sports festival. Despite being in the same class and team, we competed fiercely, refusing to lose to each other. We competed in everything, like who passed more people in the relay. Thanks to that, or perhaps not, our team won decisively every year. Our competition wasn't limited to studies and sports. We clashed in student council activities too. In 8th grade, we both ran for student council president. However, we were both soundly beaten by an annoyingly handsome guy who only ran as a joke. That was a bitter pill to swallow for both of us. In that way, we often fought so much that those around us wondered why we couldn't get along. To the question of why, neither of us had an answer. The ritual of competing with Steve, which started from our days vying for the hero's role, had become the norm. It wasn't that we didn't get along, but that's how it must have seemed from the outside. However, deep down, we each acknowledged the other as our greatest rival. We continued our rivalry in high school, competing in everything as expected. We'd probably compete in everything anyway, whether it be studies or the sports festival. We probably would have competed over who got into a more prestigious college. But then, everything changed suddenly. In the fall of my freshman year of high school, my father passed away in a car accident. The suddenness of it plunged our family into deep grief. The photo of my father with a beaming smile, the lavish and large floral arrangements, the sounds of soft sobs. I still vividly remember all of these things. What? The driver is claiming innocence. Yes, that's right. The accident was caused by the driver's reckless driving. He was smoking with one hand and using his phone and steering with the other, even having consumed alcohol. His actions were extremely irresponsible. Yet, despite this, he claimed he was not at fault. Taking advantage of the fact that the victim was no longer in this world, he kept making self-serving statements, never once apologizing to the bereaved family. We were beyond angry, just utterly shocked. But with all this evidence, we should be okay. The dash cam and nearby security camera footage clearly showed my father wasn't at fault and that the driver was to blame. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility and clear your father's name. In this nightmare-like situation, the lawyer, Bob, was incredibly supportive. Bob, a newcomer at a small law firm, fought hard for my father's honor. Thanks to him, my father was publicly vindicated. The driver faced severe punishment. Thank you, Bob. This will finally bring peace to my husband. We're truly grateful for everything. Hearing the good news, our family, in tears, thanked Bob. Even after all this, the offender never apologized. But that's all right now. The most important thing is that we were judged fairly. Besides, I had already managed to recover from my despair. The emotion that triggered this recovery was admiration. Bob, I want to be a legal expert like you. Like me, that's an honor. Do your best, I'll support you. He cleared my father's name and saved our family from despair. To me, Bob was a true hero. Although different in form and approach from the hero I aspired to be as a child, the principle of saving people in trouble with justice remained the same. Since then, I decided to pursue a degree in law. I aimed for a more challenging university, studying hard on my own every day. I should have been fulfilled, yet I felt a slight sense of dissatisfaction. Not understanding the reason behind this feeling, I continued to immerse myself in my studies. Then, one day, when I mentioned my aspiration to study law, Steve was surprised. Really, Mike, you're aiming for that law school too? You too, Steve? Yeah, what, you want to compete with me? It turned out his father was a lawyer. Influenced by him, Steve developed a strong sense of justice and aimed to be a defender of justice, just like me. Despite that, he had a pretty foul mouth. I thought he might be more suited to be a dark hero rather than a regular hero, but I kept that thought to myself. Setting that aside, now that Steve and I had the same goal. Fine. I'll be the top entrant, Mike. You can just wail at my feet. Sorry, but I can't let that happen. My dream is on the line. Thus it began our competition to see who could score higher on the entrance exams. Determined to score even 1 point higher than him, I studied harder than ever. Before I knew it, my sense of dissatisfaction had vanished. Perhaps, deep down, I craved this competition with him. As a result of our hard work, both of us successfully passed the entrance exams. I was overjoyed to have moved a step closer to my dream, but it stung a bit to lose to Steve by a few points. As a law student, I worked hard at my studies. The stimulation from competing with Steve led to a fulfilling college life. However, things took another turn. After my father's death, my mother, who had been working tirelessly, collapsed. It must have been the toll of years of hardship. There was a scholarship to cover tuition, and I could manage living expenses with part-time jobs. If it were just me, there would be no issue, but it wasn't that simple. There were hospital bills for my mother, and I had twin younger brothers. At the time, they were in their second year of middle school, about to face high school entrance exams. They would need money for exam fees and, if they passed, for tuition. I cut back on expenses as much as possible and increased my work hours. To save every penny, my meals became increasingly frugal. I quickly lost weight, worrying my friends. Yet, I continued to throw myself into studying and working. Sometimes, I took night shifts that paid more, even if it meant losing sleep. Mike, you can't keep this up. Your health won't last. Maybe you should take a break once in a while, professors and friends advised me, but I didn't listen. It was all for my mother, for my brothers. Thinking so, I continued my miserable life, narrowed by my limited perspective. At that time, what I held was a sense of justice for my family. But at the same time, it was also a distorted, reckless spirit of self-sacrifice. With such a lifestyle, my body broke down in just half a year. After finishing a night shift, attending lectures at university all day, and then another night shift, I pushed myself too hard while tired and finally collapsed during work. You're suffering from overwork. You should rest for a while. It's better to stop doing part-time work for the time being. What? But my family needs me. Calm down, Mike. If something happens to you, it's all for nothing, right? The doctor told me that, and I was left speechless, unable to respond. It was because he was absolutely right. Yes, at this rate, my family and I would all collapse together. Why didn't I realize such a simple thing? I thought about it a lot while receiving eavesdrops in the hospital. The dream I pursued, inspired by my admiration for Bob, and the improvement of the reality that surrounded me now. Realizing both at the same time was impossible for me. Then, I had to prioritize one over the other, meaning I had to give up one of them. Faced with this choice, my heart decided immediately, without any hesitation. I couldn't abandon my family. I decided to drop out of university and start working. This was my decision during the last week of my college life. While I was at the university handling various procedures, I was stopped by Steve. Mike, is it true you're dropping out? What, you knew? I had told my close friends about dropping out, but I deliberately didn't tell Steve. If he also considered me a good rival, my dropout might demotivate him. That's why I kept it to myself. Why the heck are you doing this? Giving up halfway like this, because you collapsed? Is that enough for you to give up? It's part of the reason. Well, there are various circumstances. Steve, looking like he might grab my collar any moment, had tears in his eyes. Lucky you, the nuisance is gone. Now you can study to become a great lawyer without any distractions, right? Don't joke around. Don't give up so easily. Was your dream just that much to you? Steve confronted me with a voice loud enough to echo through the university entrance. However, my decision to drop out was already made, for my family and for my own health, and I couldn't just say, I won't quit after all. I'm sorry. Unable to find the right words to respond, all I could do was apologize to Steve. To him, I no longer had the spirit of competition or the fangs to fight. Understanding this, Steve clicked his tongue and walked away from me. I could only silently watch his back as he left. Until I could earn a decent living, we managed with the money my father left and what I had saved from my excessive part-time work. Though it was tough, my mother's health gradually improved, and my brothers successfully advanced in their education. I resumed part-time work to support our living. Years passed since then. One day, I was in the restroom of a courthouse I visited for an errand. It was pretty clean, but I noticed a bit of dirt on the wash basin. When my mother was in the hospital, I mostly did the housework. I particularly liked cleaning and would get absorbed in it before I knew it. I just couldn't stand leaving any dirt, a habit from that time. Caring about the cleanliness was a habit from that time. I see there's a rag. It might be none of my business, but I just couldn't leave it alone, so I decided to clean up. I took off my suit jacket, rolled up my sleeves, and wiped the dirty area clean. The mirror also caught my attention, so I polished that too. Phew, that's better. Feeling satisfied, I noticed someone had entered. Standing in the middle of the hallway, admiring my cleaning work, I thought I might be in the way and quietly muttered "Excuse me" as I moved aside. As I looked up while exiting the restroom, I made eye contact with the person through the mirror. He stopped in his tracks and looked at me. Can I help you? Is that Mike? The man, wearing a lawyer's badge on his collar, called out my name. Mike, it is you, isn't it? He exclaimed with an unusually loud voice, his eyes wide open. I recognized him immediately. His hair was set with wax, and he was well dressed. But his face was unmistakable. Steve Burton, my rival since kindergarten. Hey, Steve, long time no see. It's a surprise to meet you here. His tailored suit seemed to scream his competence. I greeted him, acknowledging our reunion. In contrast, Steve sneered upon seeing me with a rag in my hand. What's this? Bathroom cleaning. Did you quit law school to become a fancy janitor or something? No, it's not like that. I denied Steve's words, but he continued to mock me. He continued to mock me, saying it was something only a lowly person would do. I can't believe the guy who was competing for the top spot with me ended up like this. I thought you were my rival, but it seems I was totally mistaken. Frustrated with Steve's unwillingness to listen, I put away the rag. You seem to be misunderstanding something. I washed my hands, dried them with a handkerchief, put on the jacket I was holding under my arm, and then looked Steve straight in the eyes. I'm a judge, actually. Well, an associate judge for now. What? Steve finally quieted down, his gaze briefly flickering away. He must have noticed the badge on my jacket. A judge, what? Why are you? What do you mean why? You're the one who said it. Don't give up so easily. So, I didn't give up. That's all there is to it. With that, Steve's face froze in astonishment. Years after dropping out of college, my twin brothers were high school students, about to start thinking about their future paths. My mother's health had improved enough for her to be discharged, requiring only occasional hospital visits. Still, I continued juggling construction work and convenience store shifts to support us. One day, my mother called me to a nearby cafe. What? Remarrying? Yes, that's right. The person is. Oh, here he comes now. As she said this, she waved towards the cafe entrance. Turning around, I saw a man about my mother's age approaching us. The person is, wait, sir, Dr. Thompson, right. My mother's new partner was Dr. John Thompson, her primary physician. Mike, I'm looking forward to our future together. Yes, likewise, I'm looking forward to it too. The awkwardness of knowing my mother's remarriage partner only lasted the first few weeks. John was a very kind and caring person. I felt at ease leaving my mother in his hands. My brothers quickly warmed up to John, bonding with him as if they were a real family. Moreover, both of them began expressing a desire to become doctors like John and wished to pursue medical studies. I was worried about the high tuition fees, but John generously offered to pay for everything. Even though they were his stepsons, he was genuinely happy that they wanted to follow in his footsteps. He also offered to take care of our household finances, saying the money I earned for the house should be used for myself. Suddenly freed from my responsibilities, I was unsure of what to do next, but then I came to a decision. There was still something I hadn't accomplished. The path to becoming the hero of justice I had always admired since childhood. The path of law, which I had entered inspired by Bob. I resolved to re-enter the law school and resume my studies. That's the decision I made. My brothers and I enrolled in the same university, they in the medical school and I in the law school. I studied hard again, maintaining the top position in my class. I passed the bar exam on my first try and received high praise during my legal training. This is how I became a judge. But I am still an associate judge. It takes over a decade of experience to become a full judge. I continue to strive, knowing this is not the end goal. The presence of a rival fuels my motivation. Even though I was praised as a top student in the law school, I still felt unfulfilled. The fact that I had fallen behind years ago always lingered in my mind. Someday, I will stand shoulder to shoulder with that man, my classmate and rival, and surpass him. That thought has been my driving force. After hearing my long story, Steve stood there, looking down. So, that's what happened. I wondered if this man was really Steve Williams. He had such an uncharacteristic expression on his face. I'm sorry about back then. I knew your situation, yet I only pushed my ideals on you. You must have been struggling, too. He regretted what he had said to me just before I dropped out of college. His uncharacteristic words caught me off guard, and I nearly burst into tears. Why didn't I support you more? I'm really sorry. I regret it. Steve remained downcast. I said, look up, man, and put my hand on his shoulder. Steve, I'm actually thankful for what you said back then. Don't give up so easily. It was because you said that I decided to try again. After leaving college, I honestly thought about giving up on law. Maybe get a job at some average company and lead a vague, aimless life. After all the struggles I had been through, that should have been enough. That's what I thought. But I couldn't get Steve out of my head. His expression at the university entrance the last time I saw him seemed to be a mix of anger and sadness. If I gave up, would he get angry with me again? And there was another thing. I didn't want to end up a loser. Steve's family owned a law firm. He was an excellent student, and he would undoubtedly become a lawyer. I had lost to him in the university entrance exam scores and in realizing our dreams. Playing the hero, studying, the sports festival. Steve and I, constantly winning and losing against each other, never once allowed ourselves to be outdone. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that ending my lifelong competition with him as a loss would be like losing a part of my life. That thought was unbearably frustrating. It was these two major reasons that allowed me to make a comeback. That's why I'm grateful to you, Steve. Thanks for getting angry at me back then. Mike. When Steve looked up, He met my eyes and gave a sly smile. That's right, you've always been that kind of guy, always competing with me. No matter how much I pushed you away, you'd always claw your way back, always in my way. No, it was you who was always trying to compete with me, wasn't it? I responded with a smile to Steve's words. Fine then, Mike. Let's have another competition. Who will make it first, me taking over my father's firm as a director, or you becoming a judge? I accept your challenge. Just don't cry later, okay? That's my line. We bantered, glaring at each other as sparks flew. After a few seconds of this, we both reached our limit and burst out laughing. Ahaha, oh man, we haven't changed a bit since we were kids. Right, but this is us, isn't it? Always trying to one-up each other. Looking forward to more of this, Steve. Yeah, absolutely. Same here, Mike. Our rivalry, which began when we were preschoolers and continued into our college years. It wasn't going to end just because we had become adults. We will continue to compete and spur each other on. Though unspoken, Steve and I exchanged a firm handshake, conveying this mutual understanding. Some time later, Steve and I started to interact as friends, even drinking together. Finally, as we were approaching our 30s. Wow, you already have a wife and kids. Steve was already married, aiming to be a distinguished director for his family's sake. What about you? Me, I haven't thought that far ahead, still single. As I sighed, Steve proudly started talking about his wife and family. Marriage is great, kids are wonderful, he said with a smile. In this regard, I knew I couldn't compete with him. Instead of feeling envious or jealous, I just listened with a smile, finding it heartwarming. One day, Steve contacted me and invited me to his house. He was throwing a birthday party for his daughter and asked me to come and celebrate with them. I was worried about intruding on a family event, but apparently, my name was well known as Steve's rival, and they were eager to meet me. Hi, it's great to meet you. As I was guided to the living room, I saw his wife and their daughter running around. Welcome, my husband always speaks highly of you. His wife greeted me with a gentle smile. Their daughter, seemingly startled by my sudden appearance, clung to her mother's legs. Not wanting to scare her, I crouched down to her level and asked, "Hello, what's your name?" She blushed and hid behind her mother. Seeing this, Steve burst out laughing. Haha, Mike, looks like she doesn't like you. Why are you so happy about that? When Steve picked her up, she seemed to calm down. Looking straight at me, she said, "My name's Emily." Is that so, Emily? How old are you? I asked, and Emily got down from Steve's arms and ran to the back of the living room. I watched her curiously as she held up her birthday card above her head, saying cheerfully, 3. Though initially scared, Emily gradually warmed up to me. After several hours, she even brought a book over and sat on my lap. "Read this, please." "Okay, sure thing." After I read to her, Emily politely thanked me. It was surprising to see such manners in a 3-year-old. As I patted her head and praised her, she hopped around joyfully. Watching her, I began to think that having kids might be nice. As evening approached, it was time to say goodbye. "Are you leaving already?" "Yeah, goodbye, Emily." No, don't go." It seemed I had become unusually attached to her in just one day. She grabbed my pants, making it hard for me to leave. "Come on, don't trouble him," Steve said as he picked her up. She looked like she might cry any moment. "Emily, I'll come to play again, okay, promise." I extended my pinky finger, and she did the same. As we made a pinky promise to meet again, Emily suddenly kissed me on the cheek. Surprised, I turned to see Steve getting angry. "Hey, Mike, what's that about? Don't come here again. I won't let you see Emily anymore," Steve shouted, his face turning red. Then, as if to defy her father, Emily shouted loudly, "Why would you say that? No, no, I hate Daddy." Emmy, what? There I was, confused about how to react. Emily was crying, Steve was red-faced, and his wife was smiling at the chaos unfolding at the doorway. The goodbye at the entrance turned into such a chaotic scene. As a busy judge, my days are filled with responsibility. This job carries a great deal of responsibility. My job greatly impacts people's lives. But with great responsibility it comes great fulfillment. I'm determined to be a respectable judge, fulfilling the dream I worked hard to achieve. I owe my current perseverance to the people around me. My father, who always worked for us. Bob, who cleared my father's name and introduced me to the world of law. My mother, who continued to support me warmly even after falling ill. John, who encouraged me. And above all, my rival, who urged me never to give up. And now, Emily, who adores me. They are all important people in my life. Reflecting on this, I realize how much my life is supported by these people. For their sake, I will continue to be a dignified judge and strive for excellence. Gazing at the starry sky on my way home from work, I made this vow to myself. Jason, I think we should part ways. Why? Why would you say that? It's hard for me, always being asked when we're going to have kids. I was deeply shocked when my beloved wife suggested divorce. But maybe it's understandable that Kimberly feels this way. My name is Jason. I'm a 37-year-old married man. My family has run a tailor shop for generations, and as the eldest son, it was agreed that I would take over. Currently, I'm in charge of a branch, gaining experience and working as the manager. I took great pride in the long-standing brand and history of our tailor shop and constantly pushed myself to be a worthy successor. Kimberly was always there, supporting me. Thank you for shopping with us. We look forward to seeing you again. Kimberly maintained her dignity and cheerful customer service and sent her guests on their way. Seeing her work so efficiently in her elegant dress always received high praise from our clients. Thanks to Kimberly working alongside me, my branch attracted many customers. Hey, that customer earlier bought a whole dress set. Your recommendations must have been spot on, Kimberly. Well, if our customers are going to wear our dresses, we should make sure they get ones that suit them best, right? Saying this, Kimberly gave me a refreshing smile. Working together like this, I often thought how glad I was to have married her. This year marks our 4th anniversary, and our relationship is still going strong. However, to be honest, my parents weren't thrilled about me marrying Kimberly. Oh, what on earth did you choose 31-year-old Kimberly as your bride? With our families standing, you could have had so many suitable arranged dates. When I decided to marry Kimberly, my mom dramatically sighed and said that to me. Before I met Kimberly, I had no experience in dating women, and people around me were worried about me. Out of concern, my parents often suggested arranged dates, but I just wasn't interested. I believed that one should marry not based on family background or conditions, but someone they truly love. Although I lacked experience in relationships, I wanted to choose my life partner on my own and make her happy. I want to choose my life partner and make them happy. Back in the day, I met Kimberly at a traditional dress workshop. Kimberly, with her charming smile, gracefully dressed a mannequin. Turns out, Kimberly had learned how to wear traditional dresses during her training. Being shy, I didn't want to miss this chance and approached Kimberly right away. After dating for a year, we get married. For me, the fact that Kimberly could wear a traditional dress was impressive, but my parents seemed to think differently. Isn't Kimberly just of average background and in her 30s? Do you really think she can bear our air? Yes, Jason. Why did you choose her? Even if you have kids, she'll be over 35 at her first childbirth. I have so many concerns. They complained a lot about this to me, but their thinking was quite old-fashioned. Kimberly was a calm and refined lady who elegantly wore traditional dresses. And aren't there many women these days who give birth in their 30s? Despite my parents' objections, I decided to have a wedding with the woman I loved, Kimberly. On that day, Kimberly looked truly beautiful in her pure white dress and bright red lipstick. I had a feeling I'd never forget this wonderful day as I solemnly sipped from the ceremonial cups. Even after 4 years of marriage, we don't have children, but I never saw it as a big issue. We were about to start fertility treatments soon, and I was determined to stay positive. Currently, we don't live with my parents, and I tried to keep Kimberly away from family stress. I wanted to protect her in my own way. But one day, Kimberly, with a sad look, suddenly said to me, "Jason, let's break up." Panicking, I asked, "Why?" With a downcast face, Kimberly calmly expressed her feelings. "I'm tired of constantly being asked about when we're having children. You shouldn't care about what others say. We're about to start fertility treatments, and we can go at our own pace. I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore. I guess I wasn't meant to marry into a good family. Please, let's separate." Interrupting me, Kimberly pleaded with tears in her eyes. If this was Kimberly's wish, then I suppose I had to accept it. The idea of my beloved wife wanting a divorce deeply shocked me. But maybe it was inevitable. Kimberly is serious-minded, and perhaps she felt more pressure than me to meet my parents' expectations. I believed I was considering Kimberly's feelings, but in the end, I was only satisfying myself. I didn't realize that Kimberly had been pushed to this extent until today. I felt like the worst husband ever. All right, let's get a divorce. So, we began to prepare for our divorce. Since we both agreed, everything proceeded smoothly without any issues. My parents were thrilled about the divorce. "Jason, well done. We'll arrange a good match for you soon." Kimberly got what she deserved. She was out of her league marrying our Jason. "Hey, don't say anything bad about Kimberly." I raised my voice, and my parents visibly flinched, falling silent. Even though we were planning to part ways, I couldn't bear her being insulted like this. No matter if they're family, I can't forgive it. This divorce wasn't Kimberly's fault. I felt heavily that it was on me. So, Kimberly had finished packing, ready to move out at any moment. The divorce papers were ready, and after our final dinner together, we planned to submit them to the city office. Yes, just after our last dinner together tonight. I'll be heading to the hair salon before our dinner, and might be a bit late getting to the restaurant. I'm sorry. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I responded calmly, going about my work for the day. From tomorrow, Kimberly wouldn't be at this branch. I bet the clients will really miss her. But what's decided is decided, and there's nothing to be done. Hiding my mounting sense of emptiness, I finished my work, changed into my suit, and headed to the upscale French restaurant where Kimberly and I were meeting. This restaurant was a renowned place, frequently featured in magazines and highly rated. Surely, we could make a wonderful memory there. But deep down, I truly didn't want to part ways. I thought of expressing my feelings to Kimberly one last time. Once seated, I ordered some wine first. When Kimberly would arrive, I thought we'd drink together. However, the agreed time passed, and there was no sign of Kimberly. I began to worry, sending her a message. Perhaps something had happened to her. However, all I got back was a terse message saying, "I can't make it after all." Reading this, I felt like I'd been stood up. This was unexpected. To be honest, it was a letdown. Does Kimberly really dislike me that much? Since I'd just been sitting at the table without ordering anything other than wine, I could feel the glances from other customers and waitstaff. It was probably obvious to everyone around that I'd been stood up. Darn it. Suddenly feeling reckless, I kept ordering more wine. I thought that by drinking a lot, I could drown out my sorrows. But truthfully, this only made me feel more empty. Staring into my wine glass, pondering my pathetic state, someone suddenly spoke to me. "Excuse me, are you Kimberly's husband by any chance?" When I looked up, there was a couple about my age. From their vibes, I guessed they were likely married. The man was bald, and the woman had an elegant air about her. I unconsciously sensed a familiar vibe from these two. But the fact that they know about Kimberly. Who exactly are this couple? Yes, I am Kimberly's husband. Have we met somewhere before? When I asked, the bald man opened his mouth. Apologies for not introducing myself earlier. My name is Bob. I serve as the assistant pastor at St. Andrew's Church. Hearing the name St. Andrew's, my eyes widened. That church was one of the largest in this region. The structure itself was grand, and it was a historically renowned church with a large congregation, famous for its prestige. Given its history, it's probably under the same kind of scrutiny from the public as our family-owned clothing store. It was probably because of this background that I somehow sensed the same atmosphere in these two people as I did. Both are feudal and particular worlds in today's society. The elegant lady in the dress, looking straight at me, began to speak unexpectedly. "Isn't your wife with you today? Kimberly really helped me out. Thanks to Kimberly's advice, I have built a happy home with my husband." Not fully grasping her words, I responded, but then, she dropped a bombshell. 5 years ago, distressed about not being able to have a child, I was on the verge of jumping off a bridge. That's when Kimberly, who happened to be passing by, talked me out of it. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shared her past. She must have been truly desperate back then. The weight of the expectation was probably suffocating her. Kimberly probably felt the same way. The realization made my heart ache for Kimberly. Kimberly desperately tried to stop me, and showing me a photo of you on her cell phone, spoke passionately. "I'm not exactly well regarded by my fiancé's parents, probably because of my age, but even so, he chose me. Honestly, I'm worried about whether I can live up to his parents' ideal of a wife, but I believe I'll never meet anyone I love more than him. And I don't think I'll find anyone who values me more than he does. No matter the challenges, I want to overcome them together." Tears welled up uncontrollably from my eyes as I heard these words from the lady. I was so touched to realize Kimberly felt this way about someone as unworthy as me. Beside me, her husband spoke up. "We're truly grateful to Kimberly. Currently, we've adopted a child and are living happily as a family of 3. We've faced many challenges, but we've overcome them because she's been by my side." It's true, with love, people can overcome any difficulty. Hearing their words, I was determined once again. I didn't care what others said anymore. Throughout this long journey of life, I was certain that Kimberly was the only one for me. If Kimberly still had any feelings left for me, I'd protect her with all I've got. That was my firm decision. No, I should be thanking you. Thanks to both of you, I've had a wake-up call. Let's meet again sometime. I quickly scribbled down my contact info and handed it to them, paid the bill, and left the diner in a hurry. Outside, it was pouring rain, and taxis were bustling about. Initially, I thought of catching a taxi, but they were all occupied. I need to get to Kimberly as soon as possible. Driven by this thought, I ran through the rain. Drenched in my suit, I probably looked out of place to passers-by. But I couldn't care less about that. I had to reach Kimberly as soon as possible. I was certain Kimberly must have also decided to divorce me with great concern. After running for about 20 minutes, I arrived at Central Park. This park was a special place for us. We had our first date here. Gasping for breath, I looked around and searched for Kimberly. I had this intuition that she'd be here. And sure enough, my intuition was spot on. Kimberly stood there, soaked to the bone. Kimberly. I called out her name and dashed towards her. She turned to me with a startled expression. Her eyes were swollen and red, making it obvious she had been crying. "You shouldn't be getting so wet. It's okay. After all, I can't have children." Tears streamed down Kimberly's face as she said this. She had apparently been to a gynecologist for a checkup before infertility treatments. The diagnosis was that her chances of conceiving were nearly impossible. Her distress reminded me of the wife I'd met earlier. "I truly love you, Jason. That's why I don't want to upset you. Maybe you should find someone more suitable for the family business. No one but you is right for me." I probably spoke louder than intended, catching both of us by surprise. But it was the truth. If you don't want to upset me, never leave me. Forget about family business and heirs. No matter what, I'll always protect you. There's no one else for me but you, Jason. As the rain continued to pour, we held each other tightly. Even though we were exposed to the cold, warmth radiated from where we touched. At that moment, we truly understood each other. I was determined never to let go of Kimberly again. So we decided not to get divorced and to start over as a married couple. Our parents complained, but we didn't care. The next head of the family will be me. Everyone will follow my way. If anyone has a problem with that, I don't mind stepping down from my inheritance. What? That would be a problem, Jason. At my words, both my dad and mom looked panicked. Sure, the current head is my father, but he's clueless about IT stuff. The success of our clothing store is largely due to me. My dad probably doesn't want to lose his successor now. But I wasn't bluffing. If they interfered with my relationship with Kimberly any further, I was ready to cut ties with the family. Fortunately, we had some savings. Kimberly and I know a lot about clothes, so we'd get by. That night, I resolved never to let go of Kimberly again. After that, following the example of Bob and his wife, we adopted a child and began raising him. Our son's name is David, a 3-year-old boy. Kimberly truly loved David with all her heart. Daddy. At first, David was quite shy, but lately, he's been sticking close to me. "Oh, David, did you have fun at daycare today?" "Yeah. Tomorrow's a day off, so let's go to the park, just the 3 of us." "Yeah." My parents have started to dote on David recently, and it seems that all the family troubles are heading towards a happy resolution. From now on, I want to keep a certain distance from my parents and cherish Kimberly and David above all else. "I'm so happy," Kimberly said with a big smile. "We'll overcome any challenges together and share our joys." Watching us, David will surely grow up to be a kind man. I'm not a justice-minded person. Why did I help her when she was being harassed by thugs? I can't even understand it myself. I was in a hurry, with an important errand ahead of me. And yet, this beautiful girl looked up at me with those big eyes. "My name is Tom. I'm 28 and work at an advertising agency. Just your average Joe working a 9 to 5. If there's anything that sets me apart, it might be that I have no family to speak of. My mom had me without ever getting married. I know nothing about my father. Never even heard a peep about him from mom. For me, the absence of a father figure was just the norm. Apparently, my mom cut ties with her own parents before I was born. By the time I had any memories, I had no grandparents either. Raised single-handedly by my mom, She passed away just as I was about to graduate college. Sitting by her sick bed, I cried, telling her I wish I could have done more for you. She simply replied, "You didn't need to," before slipping into unconsciousness. And just like that, she was gone. It was a very her way to go. Whimsical, a tad selfish, and slightly eccentric, that was my mom. It wasn't until I entered the workforce that I realized I might have inherited her personality. The way people perceived me was eerily similar to the way I saw my mother. Makes me chuckle thinking, like mother, like son. But hey, I made it to 28 just fine. I'm sure mom's watching over me from wherever she is, feeling content. At work, folks think I lack the oomph but agree I'd get the job done. I'm motivated, it just doesn't seem to come across that way. Some even think I'm holding back my true potential. Truth be told, I enjoy my work. There's a sense of accomplishment and a clear end in sight. The only slight complaint I have is about my immediate supervisor. His name is Kevin. He used to be in charge of training us newcomers. Now, he's our direct supervisor. Kevin has always had a bad reputation around the office. He rarely does any work but has a knack for making it seem like he does. It would be more accurate to say that he is smart. Basically, he's incredibly good at taking credit for others' achievements. On top of that, he's an expert at brown-nosing the higher-ups. The kind to climb the ladder by using his subordinates as stepping stones. I know it's different for everyone, but it does make me wonder about his character. Being entrusted with such a big project alongside Kevin really gives me a headache. It's a major contract and a large-scale project, with formidable competitors to boot. The CEO himself has said that we can't afford to lose this presentation. Kevin is the project leader. We're supposed to work as his hands and feet. I did all the work for the presentation's content and created all the documents. I believe that, together with the other staff, we've come up with the best we can. Kevin only gives us sarcasm and notices, but does nothing to help us. I even doubt he fully grasps the project's details. His main job seems to be giving a summarized progress report to the CEO. You could say that's pretty much all Kevin does for work. And of course, he reports it as if it's all his own achievement. Some staff members are getting sick of Kevin and losing their motivation. It also became my role to listen to their complaints. With the final presentation scheduled for the next day, I was feeling a bit nervous. Only Kevin and I are set to attend. I don't think Kevin even checked the presentation details. I'm thinking it's a presentation I'm going to have to work on alone. I doubt Kevin even looked through the presentation materials. I wish anyone but Kevin was accompanying me, but he's the project leader, so there's no helping it. I sincerely hoped he wouldn't get in my way. On the day of the presentation, I left my home earlier than usual. No matter what kind of accident might occur on the way, being late isn't an option. I decided to take a shortcut to the station to get to the presentation venue ahead of time. I don't usually go this way, but I passed through a park behind the station. It turned out to be a poor decision. Let me go. Looking in the direction of the voice, a high school girl was surrounded by a sketchy group. They were insisting on hanging out with the reluctant girl. I couldn't just walk by, so I shouted, "Hey, knock it off." All eyes from the sketchy group turned to me at once. They looked a bit older than the high school girl. They seemed like college students who were used to having their way. She's clearly not interested. They sneered at my words. The apparent leader of the group aggressively said, "Mind your own business." He didn't seem to want to back down. The high school girl looked up at me, clearly seeking help. Forcing her isn't manly. She doesn't want to hang out with you guys. Get it? At my words, they became menacing. I suddenly heard the sound of something cutting through the air. In the next instant, a sharp pain shot through my face. It wasn't until I hit the ground on my knees that I realized I'd been punched. Looking down at me, doubled over in pain, the gang laughed uproariously. My vision started to blur. Just when I thought, this isn't good, the gang's ringleader let out a scream. As my consciousness began to fade, the last thing I saw was a high school girl repeatedly kicking the leader where it hurts. Guess I wasn't the hero of this story after all. Listening to their screams, I slowly closed my eyes. While unconscious, I had a dream. I heroically saved the high school girl, and she thanked me. She hugged me, saying thank you, making me feel on top of the world. And on closer inspection, the girl in the dream looked a lot like my girlfriend from high school. Even though I knew it was a dream, I enjoyed the sensation of her embrace. Cut me some slack, it's just a dream after all. Hey, how long are you gonna sleep? A gentle hand brushed my cheek. Just when I thought, what a great dream, I opened my eyes to see the high school girl looking at me with concern. Seeing her face, the first words out of my mouth were "I'm sorry." She was far more beautiful than my high school girlfriend ever was. Jumping into a fight when you're clearly not a fighter, are you stupid or just too kind? She said with a mix of exasperation and amusement. Not exactly the thanks I was expecting. It kind of ticked me off. But thanks anyway, she said with a sweet smile. I was completely captivated by her smile. Whoa, and in the next instant, I shot up and checked my watch. I was over 30 minutes late for the presentation. Checking my phone, it was flooded with missed calls from Kevin and from the head office. Sorry, I gotta run. I grabbed my things and dashed towards the subway station. I could feel her eyes on my back, but I had bigger problems. Outside the client's building, I ran into Kevin. As soon as he saw my face, he swung at me. This whole project is screwed because of you. What's your deal? Got into a fight and now you're late. Give me a break. He grabbed my collar and berated me. I'm sorry, I got caught up in some trouble. Kevin, not having any of it, immediately called the CEO. He was reporting that the presentation had failed. And all because I was late. He plans to put all the blame on me. Of course, my being late is inexcusable. But Kevin is the project lead. Even if I wasn't there, it's expected he'd handle the presentation. There's no way Kevin, who hasn't even read the documents, can step in as a substitute presenter. He was probably bombarded with questions at the meeting. Seeing Kevin timidly report, I started to care less about what happens next. The thought of working under this guy for much longer paints a bleak future. By the time I was called into the CEO's office, my decision was already made. All the mistakes from this presentation lie on Tom. Ruining such an important presentation hurts me too. Seeing Kevin play the victim and rat me out to the CEO almost made me burst out laughing. The CEO just listened to Kevin silently. Tom, any words in your defense? I'm sorry. I got caught up in a mess and was late for the crucial presentation. I'll take responsibility and resign. I could tell from the look of surprise on the CEO's face he wasn't expecting that. Making excuses won't change the outcome. I firmly placed my resignation letter on the desk. I didn't miss the smirk on Kevin's face. I bet he feels relieved with me gone. I was kind of really sick of it all. Everything no longer mattered. I didn't wait for the CEO's response. I just bowed and left his office. I quickly packed my personal belongings and left the workplace. As I was leaving, I looked up at the building of the company I had served for years and for some reason, thought of that high school girl. For the next 3 days after quitting, I just zoned out. I didn't even feel like going out until the swelling on my bruised face went down. The small photo of my mom in my room seemed to be smiling. She might be shaking her head at me from above. Or maybe she's laughing, thinking that's so like Tom. Either way, I needed a break. I kept reassuring myself of that. It was on that evening the CEO came to visit. I was eating some pasta when the doorbell rang. I was taken aback seeing the CEO at my doorstep. I had no idea why he would visit me. "I'd like to have a word. Is now a good time?" he asked in a calm tone, and I nodded. The room was a mess, but I managed to make some space for the CEO to sit. Meanwhile, he was staring at the small photo of my mom. Sir, please, have a seat here. There's only a cushion for him to sit on." I present a particularly flashy cushion to the CEO. But the CEO didn't move away from the mom's photo. Curiously, I look up at the CEO's face and am taken aback as if my breath was taken away. Without uttering a word, the CEO is just shedding tears. Seeing him quietly cry, I'm dumbstruck and forget to say anything. I have no idea how much time has passed. It turned out just as I thought. The CEO said, still captivated by the photo. To be precise, he's staring intently at a picture of my mom. "You know about my mom, don't you?" The CEO silently nods in response to my words. Seeing him cry this much in front of my mom's picture, I figured they must have been close. After the cancer was detected, it all happened so fast. It truly did. Maybe she was holding back from feeling sick. By the time I forcefully took her to the hospital, it was too late, and there was nothing I could do. Hearing about my mom's last moments, the CEO finally faced me. "I'm sorry for coming and announced. Your departure was so abrupt, it reminded me of her," the CEO said, looking once again at my mom's photo. "Excuse me if I'm mistaken, but don't you know my dad? If he knows so much about my mom, he must know about my dad too." That's what I thought when I asked the CEO. The CEO looks a bit troubled. I suspected he might know a secret related to my father. "Tom, would you be willing to take a DNA test?" With those words from the CEO, I understood everything. It made sense. I wanted to brush it off, but the words were stuck in my throat. She disappeared from my sight in an instant. As soon as my arranged date with my current wife was set, she vanished, and that was that. He must deeply regret that time. The CEO seemed to struggle to find the right words. My mom, considering the CEO's future, stepped back. "I've heard that the CEO's wife is the daughter of a senator." "Is that so? Sounds just like Mom. But sir, if she were still around, would you have chosen her?" "Oh, that's not the right way to ask. Could you have chosen her?" My sharp words made the CEO flinch. Thinking he was the only one hurt was a big mistake. As visiting me, suggesting a DNA test, felt almost like a betrayal to the family he has now. I don't have a family. I'm all alone in this world. That's why I understand the value of family. I thought the CEO should live to protect his current family, rather than dwelling on the past. "If you're seeking atonement," Mom would probably say, I began. "Huh? I don't need your pity." The CEO stared at me, probably seeing my mom and me. "Could you please leave? I'm not even your employee anymore." Pointing at the front door, the CEO seemed at a loss for words to say to me. He probably wasn't used to being outright rejected by someone. In the end, the CEO couldn't even say a word to me and just left through the front door. It was the first time I met my dad, but I didn't feel anything special. I'm not in for playing silly games. That night, my late mother appeared in my dreams after a long time. She was laughing so hard she was holding her stomach. It seemed she'd seen the way I sent the CEO packing. And she said, "Good job, son," praising me. Waking up with a tear of joy, I realized how fortunate I was to be her son. Mom and I are so much alike. The moment I got out of bed, there was a loud knock at the door that almost gave me a heart attack. Why would someone bang on the door when there's a doorbell? I cautiously approached the door to check. "Hey, I know you're there. Open up." I recognized that angry female voice from behind the door. It was the high school girl I met in the park. I opened the door fearfully. She looked like she was about to kick it in. "Dang, was just about to break it down," she said, lowering her foot that was raised to kick. I was trying to process why she was here. "I've got something to discuss, interim big bro," she said with a sly grin. I got the message and realized what she meant. Erwin, right, the CEO's daughter. She beamed and said, "Bingo," raising both her hands in a victory sign. Without waiting, she swiftly entered my apartment. She tossed her shoes from inside to the doorway. Such bad manners for a CEO's daughter. Sighing, I arranged the tossed shoes and looked back into the room. I saw her, with hands clasped in prayer, standing in front of my mom's photo. The long lashes around her tightly shut eyes trembled slightly. She must be nervous in her own way. "Did the CEO tell you about me?" "Nope. Found some documents my mom was looking into." She turned to face me and began talking. Her name was Olivia. Apparently, she was the only child born to the CEO and his wife. Sadly, after giving birth to Olivia, the wife was diagnosed with cancer and had a full hysterectomy. She's still tormented by the fact that she hasn't given him a son. She blames herself for not being able to produce an heir. At that time, the CEO found a photo of my mother he had kept hidden, and after hiring a private investigator, they traced back to me. Olivia said she sneakily saw the documents her mother had kept hidden. Seeing my picture, she was surprised. Turns out, the guy who helped her in the park by chance was her own brother. She felt it was destiny. "Thanks for that time," Olivia said, giving a little nod. "Apparently, Dad said to cherish the family, but Mom knew about you. It's your job to keep my seemingly falling apart family together." She then handed me the DNA test papers. The idea of me holding her family together is beyond bizarre. I've always wanted a brother since I'm an only child. Mom can't have any more children but wants a son, and Dad, wanting an heir, is waiting for you. Receiving the documents, I wasn't sure how to respond. It all seemed to revolve around Olivia's family's needs. What's in it for me? They come and disrupt my quiet life. Don't they feel guilty? I thought it was a lousy negotiating technique. I guess my feelings showed on my face. Olivia smirked. "There's one benefit for you too." "What?" "It doesn't seem beneficial to me at all. You get a cute little sister like me." Olivia made a peace sign and laughed, showing it right in front of my eyes. "Isn't it great? Both of us not being alone anymore." "I see." Olivia seems to be a better negotiator than I thought. She presented a pretty tempting offer. Moreover, she looked confident. She seemed to not even consider the possibility of being turned down. This seems like the time to give in. "All right, I give up. I'll take the test." Before I could finish, Olivia jumped onto me. Holding her soft, warm body, I panicked. It's been so long since I've had such close contact with anyone. It's overwhelming. "Whoa, hold on. I'm not confirmed as your brother yet. You'll get me caught." Trying to gently push Olivia away, she resisted, hugging tighter. In a very soft voice, she said, "Thank you. That CEO is one lucky man. Having such a thoughtful daughter. Plus, wanting a son too. Talk about luxury problems. But if it means I get a family, Why not? If Olivia no longer has lonely nights by herself, then maybe my existence isn't in vain. From the DNA test, it's confirmed that the CEO and I are related by blood. When opening the results, I met Olivia's mother for the first time. She's the complete opposite of my mother. Elegant and gentle, the kind of woman who supports her man. She respectfully bowed to me, making me feel somewhat embarrassed. I thought she might dislike me, being another woman's son, but she welcomed me so warmly it was shocking. She even cried out of happiness for having a son, and I was at a loss for words. In the end, after the DNA results, it was decided that I'd return to work. I was appointed as the CEO's secretary. Essentially, I'm to support and learn about the CEO's work up close. I didn't want to live with him right away, so I'm still living alone in an apartment. Olivia frequently visits, sharing her troubles and complaints with me. Lately, she's been seeking advice about love. Who would have thought, a year ago, that I'd be giving love advice to my little sister? I've been guiding her, helping her with her love matters, so she can make the right choices. It feels rewarding when she confides in me, sharing troubles she can't discuss with our parents. However, there's one major issue. At this age, having such a cute sister has intensified my protective instincts towards her. I'm even having a hard time dealing with it myself. I reckon when Olivia gets married, both the CEO and I will be crying our eyes out. Family sure is something, I sighed with happiness. My mom is probably watching over me from the above, laughing. Thinking, serves you right, such a luxurious problem to have.